So this review will contain no spoilers. Christopher Nolan is back, baby! Somewhat Dunkirk. Welcome guys, this is Creepy and I'm going to be reviewing Dunkirk today. Strangely, I did not want to review this movie after watching it because I felt like it deserved a couple of more viewings. Just watching it once is not enough to understand what Nolan was trying to do, in my opinion. I think he's a great director. He's made 3 Batman films. He's made Inception, he's made Prestige, he's made Memento, he's made The Following. I think this is his 10th feature-length film. So basically I'll tell you what a Nolan fan does. They go to cinema to watch the new Nolan film. They don't care what subject matter he's handling. They don't care how he's going to tackle it, but they go there just for Christopher Nolan. So Christopher Nolan is a great director. If you don't know who he is, you've been living under a rock, by the way. Let me tell you one more thing. Nolan's core audience is divided into 2 types of people. One are these type of people and the others are these type of people. So this is the first Christopher Nolan movie which is based on historical events. Rest all of them have been either fiction written by himself or in association with others. This is the second shortest movie Christopher Nolan has ever made. Let's get on to it. So the first thing that hits you when you start watching this movie is the background score. The words background music and original score do not do justice to what you will experience in IMAX with this movie. Maybe it should be called sound design or something. So the sound effects and the background score mix so well to provide a great soundtrack that you can't tell whether it's actually a plane coming in or whether it's the background music playing. I would go as far as saying that Hans Zimmer, who has made the score for this movie, he hasn't made music. He has actually created an atmosphere with the sound that he has created for this movie. One major gripe is that the background music sometimes is too loud, but it has to be because it has to build intensity and tension. It's earth-shattering, basically the gunshots and the sounds of airplanes flying by. It's just too loud and just amazing to experience once. Sometimes literally I had to plug my ears in the theater because the score was getting a bit too loud for my taste. The dialogue in this movie is very sparse. There are not many lines of dialogue. On IMDb it says that the total dialogue script pages were only 20 for everyone, and there's no talking. There's not much talking in the movie any which ways. It should be like that because it's such an intense setting. The film itself gives you no information about any of the characters you see on the screen, okay? There is no backstory for anyone. There is nothing you know about them. You just know that they are people in that moment and it's their perspective. So there are young soldiers, there are veteran pilots, there are commanding generals and officers in the movie, there are brave civilians in the movie, and they all do their job well despite not having a backstory or a context related to them. Now there is a debatable topic about this movie, which is the antagonist. So the enemy, as they call it in the movie, is kept very vague. So the antagonist in this film is actually the ticking clock, as Nolan has said, that people are actually fighting against time. The Germans are not mentioned or depicted at all. I don't know why Nolan chose to self-censor the Germans and the Nazi imagery out of the movie. Maybe it was an experiment on his part. Maybe he was afraid of being accused of glorifying the bad guys. I don't know why he chose to do that, but yeah, he chose to do that. So the unseen enemy concept does create suspense, but in some places, in my opinion, it takes away from the character motivation and context. Now the story is told through 3 perspectives. The first one is the land perspective, which lasts for a week. The second one is the sea perspective, which lasts for a day. The third one is an air perspective, which lasts for 1 hour in the movie story timeline. The color themes are very interesting. The beach section, the land section has a orange color tinge to it. The sea has the dark blue theme to it, and I think the air section has the light blue theme to it, which work really well together while they are crisscrossing during the movie. That brings me to the cinematography of the movie. This is one of the best looking movies I have ever seen. It's authentic, brilliant, and best of Nolan so far, basically. There are beautiful vistas of seas and beaches and clouds and planes slowly going down. It's very realistic. It's not Hollywoodish. If you check out the making of Dunkirk on YouTube or somewhere, you will see that Nolan actually went to great lengths in order to take huge IMAX cameras in the air, in the cockpit, on the planes, on the boats, under the water, and they had like hand-mounted IMAX cameras, which is like a big deal. Nolan himself sailed from England to France, the Dunkirk beach, on a boat, and it is also said that he actually rode in a Spitfire jet. Hell, he spent $5 million just to get authentic boats and planes for this movie. The movie is gorgeous. It's the best IMAX experience for this year. here. You should watch it on as big a screen as possible. More than 70% of the movie is actually shot by the IMAX camera, so it works for it. The play with the timelines in the movie is really brilliant. This is what Nolan does best, alright. So you would have seen Memento, you would have seen The Prestige, and he plays with timelines so beautifully during the movie. It's brilliant here, and possibly the reason why people will watch this movie again and again, at least a few times. The events in the movie, like any Nolan movie, are non-chronologically depicted. The casting choices here in the movie are really interesting to me because there is surprisingly no female cast. Then I think Fionn Whitehead, Harry Styles worked really well as young soldiers. They look really young, they do the part, they don't have much dialogue, and they are really convincing. Cillian Murphy, on the other hand, is I did not really see the need for casting him in the role he was cast in. Tom Hardy especially did a good job. He got the most cheers in the theater I was as the fighter pilot. Then Kenneth Branagh, Mark Rylance and Jack Lowden, they all did a good job as the general and the civilian and his son. So that was really nice to see. This movie shows how action can speak louder than words, and Nolan, I think, researched a lot of silent films to get this effect out of his actors. Like, my personal experience about this movie is that I felt very confused and happy at the same time. I cried during one scene. I won't give you spoilers. There were literally tears running down my eyes. I had my fingers in my ears, as I mentioned earlier, during most of the big battle scenes because it was getting too loud in the theater. I got bored. I felt suspense. I felt elated. I felt joy. I felt grief. I felt everything in this movie, and I'm still confused about how I actually feel about this movie. I really think one viewing for this movie is not enough to give it an honest rating, but I will still try. My personal rating for Dunkirk will be 7 out of 10. It's very thought-provoking, and it's still making me think about what was done right and what was done wrong. There is a part of me which expected Saving Private Ryan going into this movie, and it is not satisfied with this movie. But there is a side of me that absolutely loved this movie and what Nolan has tried to achieve. The critics are loving it all over. The general audience, I believe, will have a very mixed reaction to this movie. I personally don't rate it as high as some critics have done. I will have to watch this movie a couple of more times to capture the grandeur of the event that was Dunkirk, basically, and what Nolan was trying to do with it. The movie basically primarily focuses on personal struggles during that event, which each side had to face and overcome. That's the whole movie. So movie starts, the event begins, and the movie ends. There is no context for what happened before. There is no context for what will happen after. I can safely say that this is experimental cinema at its best. Nolan has obviously mastered his craft. He's a great director. I will keep watching his movies. I will not stop. The movie looks good despite of how you might feel about it, and it is a must watch from my side. So guys, that was my review for Dunkirk. Thank you so much for supporting me. It was a very thought-provoking movie, yeah. So guys, do hit like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and yeah, bye.